All right, let's talk Dallas Cowboys. Training camp is upon us. Exciting news as players report. A lot of stuff to break down. But first, just to introduce myself and this new channel. For those of you who aren't familiar, I should say new content on this channel. This is our daily Cowboys show. We're still going to do our film reviews. We're still going to do our deep analytical dives. But we've started a daily show to go over all the Cowboys' latest and greatest news as we work our way through training camp, preseason, regular season, hopefully postseason and beyond. So without further ado, let's jump into this latest Cowboys news. Of course, the Dallas Cowboys reported a training camp yesterday. A lot of media attention, a lot of interviews, a lot of discussions, a lot of really just flying points just all over the place. Let's just get into some positive stuff first. Let's kind of get our palates kind of, opened up before we get into the really spicy content that was put out yesterday. So this first story is courtesy of Jeremy Fowler over at ESPN. He posted this on X. Great reporter, Jeremy Fowler, talking about DeMarvion Overshone. He said Overshone had a positive checkup with Dr. Neil Elatrach. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I'm not doctor, apologize. Last week that reinforced his plans to play this season. That's outstanding. He will likely start regular season on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list, for those of you who aren't familiar with that acronym is, hoping for mid-season return, but that's still open-ended based on recovery. Look, so Overshone, and I don't need to really repeat this, but I think it's really important to highlight how amazing he was becoming over the course of a disappointing 2024 season. You talk about his playmaking ability, that sack in the fourth quarter against the 49ers. At that time, it was the fastest sack in the NFL. Obviously, the pick six against New York. He made a bunch of plays at New York earlier in the season. He had plays against the Eagles, of course, in their matchup in Dallas. He had great plays against Cleveland. He was all over the place. Cincinnati, all over the ball. He was making all kind of plays. Phenomenal sideline to sideline player, was a playmaker. Finally, another linebacker, sort of what Jalen Smith was promised to be so many years ago when the Cowboys selected him out of Notre Dame. Unfortunately, injuries derailed or had a primary part in Jalen Smith's career being derailed. Hopefully that doesn't happen with Overshone. A lot of positive news there, a lot of great developments there. I know we're all rooting for this kid. We're all rooting for Agent Zero. He is a special player when healthy. Take your time. Make sure you're 100% good to go. Whenever you're ready, let's get you back. Let's see you on the field. Do those amazing athletic things, because Overshone has the ability, has the skill set to do absolutely, I'm going to say bonkers things at the linebacker position. He is a playmaker, a home run hitter, exactly what the Cowboys need. They haven't had that in so many years at linebacker. Really, they've struggled at linebacker, if we're being totally honest, since the injuries of Leighton Vander Esch of a couple seasons ago. But as good as Vander Esch was, a solid player, they haven't been elite since Sean Lee, who, of course, everyone knows injuries derailed his career. I'm expecting Overshone to return to form and do amazing things. That's the faith I have in this kid. He's a positive guy. Everything out of Dallas when it comes to Overshone has been trending in a positive direction. Again, we don't want to rush it here, but so far, so good when it comes to this young Cowboys linebacker. When he returns, he'll be a massive addition to the locker room, to the defense, and to the team as a whole. All right, next report here. This is courtesy of, right there, John Machota. This is over at The Athletic. He is a great reporter. Highly recommend him. And I think this is something that kind of flew under the radar, but I think it's really important. And he reported that the Cowboys coach, Marty Shottenheimr, obviously new head coach, he was quoted as saying, "When we win a Super Bowl, my dad will get a ring." He, of course, is talking about legendary head coach, the late, great Marty Shottenheimr, who is one of the more underrated coaches in NFL history, took multiple programs to deep postseason appearances, did a lot of really great things across the NFL, whether it was Cleveland, whether it was the Kansas City Chiefs, later with the San Diego, now they're Los Angeles, but for those of you who remember, used to be the San Diego Chargers. A lot of great things, a lot of winning in his career, but he just couldn't get to the Super Bowl, couldn't win the big one throughout his tenure as a National Football League head coach. Phenomenal head coach, one of the greats. Anyone who disses or hates on Marty Shottenheimr, look, to be honest, just doesn't know football. He was an all-time great coach, a top 5, top 6 coach in the modern era. Unfortunately, never got that ring. But when you listen to what Brian Schottenheimer is saying here, I think it's really important, because when you talk about what it takes to win and go through the process, you need clarity of purpose. You need that driving force. It can't be money, right? The money's great, but the reality is the money's great whether you go 3-14 or you go 15-2, win the Super Bowl, right? Now, obviously, you'll last longer, but still, if you go 3-14 a couple times and get fired, you're still going to make a lot of money, right? It's not about the money. It's not about the fame. It's not about the attention. You got to have clarity of purpose. What drives you to be successful? You look at great players, right? right? Famously, Tom Brady, he had that interview a number of years ago, how he never really could overcome the fact he was picked 199. 6 quarterbacks were taken ahead of him. That's what really motivated him. That's what drove him. The fact he was, constantly looking to be replaced when he was a starting quarterback. He finally became the starting quarterback at Michigan during his college days, and the Wolverines were always trying to replace him with young hotshot future Dallas Cowboy at the time, Drew Henson. That didn't really work out. Gosh, a blast from the past there. But Brady just carried that chip on his shoulder. That was his clarity of purpose, the motivation that drove him to success. If you look at Dallas Cowboys coaches over the 21st century, if we go back to Dave Campo, there was never a real good, I'll say it like that, clarity of purpose, right? Campo was, hey, can we restore the glory days of Jimmy Johnson, right? Campo was a Johnson guy. Can you bring that back, right? That's not a good vision. Let's living in the past. That ain't going to work. Bill Parcells comes in, and for him, it's about ego, right? He left the Jets famously, handed it over to Belichick. Belichick didn't want a Super Bowl. He wanted to come to another franchise and prove that he could still get it done, that he could, kind of show his star pupil, Bill Belichick, what it took. It was ego for Bill Parcells coming to Dallas, right? Still did some good things, but it wasn't the best clarity of purpose. Wade Phillips, it was just the opportunity of a lifetime, right? Hey, this is a chance, his moment in the sun, right? Spent most of his career as a defensive coordinator, a few brief stints as a head coach. Finally, it's Wade's time. Finally, it's the son of Bum Phillips' time to make a name for himself. Not a great clarity of purpose. How about Jason Garrett? He was a guy that was selected to be a coach. He was groomed by the Dallas Cowboys for so many years to eventually become their head coach. He wasn't motivated. Did he have a big chip on his shoulder? Did he have something pushing him forward? I don't think so. I don't know him personally, but certainly not to the level of Schottenheimer. And then you go to Mike McCarthy, who maybe had a little chip on his shoulder, but here was a guy who was so stuck in his ways, who was so stuck on living in the past, not dissimilar to Dave Campo in a lot of ways, that he wasn't willing, he wasn't competitive enough, he wasn't driven enough, he didn't have clarity of purpose enough to push his team forward. Schottenheimer is motivated by one of the more powerful driving forces, family, honor, right? Doing proud by your father, right? Making your father proud. As much as we all like to talk about what motivates players, we're talking about men here, we're talking about adults. This is what drives them. This is a key deterministic factor. Do you have clarity of purpose? Is it a guarantee of success? Could the Cowboys be terrible under Schottenheimer? They absolutely could. But I guarantee you one thing, Coach Schottenheimer, when he gets up every morning, when he's busting his butt, when he's leaning on his players, when he's working his staff, this underlying clarity of purpose, I'm doing this for my dad, to get my dad the ring he never got that he deserved. That's what'll drive him. It's not Mike McCarthy trying to, hey, this is a great opportunity for me to become a head coach again. Hey, this isn't Jason Garrett, who was kind of handed to him, or Bill Parcells' ego, or Dave Campo living the past, or Wade Phillips' time to shine, right? Those were not great clarity of purpose. Right here with Schottenheimer, he's doing it for his dad. And folks, that is a powerful motivator, something to really be positive about in terms of the future prospects of the Dallas Cowboys. All right, let's move on to some more spicy news. Okay, so this is a bunch of highlights courtesy of Nick Harris over at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. I'll run through these guys, even though you can see them on the screen there, but just that way you can be caught up. The Cowboys want a lot more from Stefon Diggs. For those who aren't familiar, the Cowboys actually clawed back some bonus dollars due to Diggs because he did not work with the franchise, with the organization over the course of the offseason. I can see why the Cowboys leadership is frustrated and why they clawed back some dollars. One, it's contractual. You got to follow your contract if you want to get paid. I mean, that's obvious stuff. But number two, this was a guy that after 2021 looked like the next great superstar in the entire National Football League with all the interceptions and the big plays. 2022 was a good season as well. Not nearly as good, but still pretty good. 2023 was the injuries, right? Disappointing. 2024, mix of injuries and at times mediocre performance. So we're heading into sort of a make or break season, right? Over his last 4 seasons, he's outstanding, really good, injury riddled, and mixed bag, right? Okay, this is a big year for you, Diggs. We're paying you a lot of money, new transition, new coaching staff, new culture, and you're not there, right? You're not present, or at least not as much as you should be. That's disappointing from the Cowboys leadership perspective. Now, you can turn it all around if you make the interceptions, you play good, you do a good job at corner, and you're 100% healthy, 100% good to go. We'll see over training camp, and more importantly, when the regular season starts. But I understand the disappointment from the Cowboys brass, from the Cowboys leadership, because Diggs is one of their highest paid players, and him not being present, him not being a leader as they try and work through this transition is very much disappointing. All right, the no movement on deal with Micah Parsons. This draw a lot of media buzz, and we'll get to the details of that in just 1 second and all the drama behind that. I think it's important to understand here because people are very critical of Jerry Jones, and rightly so in a lot of instances when it comes to the negotiations with Micah Parsons, along with other negotiations of star players in the past. let's take a step back here and think about this for a second, right? Because we think of the Cowboys and Jones and the leadership as, oh, they're being late, they're taking their time, they're waiting for all these deals to happen, and now they're going to have to pay more. There takes two to tango. I guarantee you, Micah Parsons and the Parsons camp, they're waiting too. They know that they're going to get paid more than TJ Watt. They know they're going to get paid more than any other edge rusher, right? Parsons is younger. Parsons is more dominant. As much as I love TJ Watt, the reality is Parsons, by all available metrics, is a much better player. You put on the film, it's just a different kind of player. Watt's great, fantastic. Don't get me wrong. Parsons, frankly, is just better. Only Garrett over in Cleveland, in my opinion, is a better edge rusher, edge defender than Micah Parsons. I think a lot of people, frankly, would agree with that. Most people that at least know the film and watch the film anyway. So when you have that in mind, the Parsons camp, they know it. They're not stupid. The Cowboys leadership, they know it. They're not stupid. They know that Parsons is going to get 5, 10, 15, 20% more than TJ Watt on an annualized basis. Wherever that spread falls into, that's the money he's going to get. So if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you're trying to get Parsons to agree to a deal, do you think if you go up to Michael Parsons today and Jerry Jones says, hey, we'll give you $35 million a year, and they've been offering that, let's say, the entire offseason. I'm not saying that was a hard number. I'm just using this as an example. I guarantee you the Parsons camp is going, no, we'll wait for Watt's deal. We're going to wait for Watt's deal because we know he's going to make 33, 35. We'll see what he gets, and then we'll put a 10, 15, 20% a bump to that and get that real number we're going to negotiate from. That's why there's been no movement, right? There's a lot of great early discussions early on this offseason, but after the drama with TJ Watt and everything that happened with Pittsburgh, and there was a lot of drama there. I know Cowboys fans, sometimes we get caught in, oh, Dallas is so drama-filled, so much media buzz, and that's not wrong, but there's a lot of issues in Pittsburgh with Watt. They got it resolved, and because of the delay, Parsons camp was waiting for that, folks. They were waiting to see what Watt would get. Now the negotiations, or at least the final negotiations, can start. So in this specific instance, this very isolated incident here, it's not all on Jerry Jones and the Cowboys leadership for the waiting and the delay. To me, this is a two to tango situation in the Parsons camp where they were clearly waiting for the Watt deal to drop so they could negotiate from that higher basis. That's what's happening right now. All right, next bullet there. Expressed regret in signing Diggs and Terrence Steele to extensions early. I don't really get that. I can understand Terrence Steele. He's been disappointing. We talked about Diggs before. I can understand why, if I look at the Dallas Cowboys and I say all the dollars allocated to players that are, injury prone or replacement level or have not lived up to the dollars, however you want to describe it, it is disappointing, but that's just a fact of life in the NFL. It just is what it is. It's unfortunate. The next bullet point, Stephen Jones suggested the team has started extension talks with Tyler Smith, but did not confirm. That's been rumors, been ongoing for a while. I'm assuming that's going to be a multi-year process as they work through that. Want more from Tyler Guyton, and Mozzie Smith. No kidding, we all do there. What's interesting when it comes to Tyler Guyton, and we broke down his film on this channel, you guys can check it out if you go through our library, is that he really has the upside. If you look at on a play-by-play basis, he basically has one play where he's perfect, looks like a Pro Bowl left tackle, and another play where he's just garbage, right? Not to be too mean and disrespectful of him. He's obviously a professional player. I'm not. But I think that's the problem with Guyton, right? Wanting more out of Guyton is more consistency. Mozzie Smith's another story. We're just kind of like, hey, play like a good player. He has not done that at all, right? It's not like Mozzie Smith's been inconsistent. It's that he's generally been underperforming significantly. Run defense has been atrocious. He's going to have to step up. Look for the young tackle out of UCLA, the rookie, to make a lot of noise. I'm expecting Mozzie Smith to be a potential casualty over the course of training camp in terms of getting released if he doesn't significantly improve. And it looks like the Cowboys, based on the comments, do not disagree. Running back battle will be determined when the pads come on. Williams, Sanders, and Blue mentioned with optimism. Yeah, the running back position is an interesting one with the Dallas Cowboys, obviously. But I think when you look at where the Cowboys sit there today, a lot of people are, they don't have a star. They don't have that big name guy. The reality is, because of what happened with Saquon Barkley last season and Derrick Henry, the same season last season as well, having great seasons. Both those teams were really good. But if you take a step back and you realize the Philadelphia Eagles a couple of years ago made the Super Bowl, should have beaten Kansas City, and they didn't have an elite running back, right? Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs have done it without an elite running back for years. The Ravens were really good in 2023 without Derrick Henry. They frankly had the same result with Derrick Henry in 2024 in terms of disappointment in the postseason. So let's pump the brakes a little bit on star running back. Now, you do need a baseline level of performance. If you look at the PFF grades, you're always looking for that 80.0 performance. Cowboys were well short of that last season. Do I think they get here this season? I don't think so unless Jaden Blue becomes a really good player. But I think they've got a lot of guys in there to give some opportunities. I'm really excited about Javonte Williams, interestingly enough, as a guy who maybe can be just a solid, steady presence. We're talking 700-800 yards, 6-7 touchdowns. A veteran guy can do a lot of things well. Hard physical runner, downhill, kind of no nonsense. I think he's a great fit paired with Jaden Blue's home run hitting. Definitely a guy to keep an eye on. And of course, Phil Maffa, the late round selection out of Clemson, being a potential power back, a guy to get some playing time. He's another guy I know a lot of people are high on. Expect big things out of Maffa. I think he's a steal for Dallas. We covered him earlier this offseason. He's got all the physical tools to be a key situational rusher. We're not talking about their number one guy, but a key situational red zone short yardage. Cowboys struggled last season. You talk about the better Ezekiel Elliott in terms of 2024 Ezekiel Elliott being that short yardage guy. I expect that from Phil Maffa this upcoming season. We'll see when the Pats come on. All right, and the last bullet point there, Shottenheimr has spoken to Kevontae Turpin following his arrest, and it's been communicated that his charges are unacceptable behavior. Don't really need to cover that in any more detail there. That just stuff can't happen, right? You got to be adults. We got to be mature about this, guys. We got to avoid things like that, obviously. It's obviously good the Cowboys agree, and as any team would, any franchise would. All right, next there, we're going to go over to the My Sports Update account here, and this is where a little drama ensues when it comes to the Micah Parsons situation. From the report, Cowboys owner Jerry Jones randomly, which is sort of a misnomer there, it's not really randomly, he's talking about Micah Parsons, it was a big conversation point, but anyway, takes a shot at Micah Parsons, saying even if they sign him, it doesn't mean they'll have him because he was hurt for 6 games last year. Fact check, he only missed 4. He then also says they made Dak Prescott the richest player in football, and he missed 2/3 of the year. All right, so there's a couple things to unpack here. First and foremost, there's a lot of people, Mike Florio over at Pro Football Talk, who I highly recommend. Great writer, got a lot of good information. His website's outstanding, so could not say more positive things about Mike Florio, but he's been very critical of Jones's comments here. Well, actually, Jerry Jones, Dak Prescott missed less than 2/3 of the time last season. And this fact check here, well, Micah Parsons didn't miss 6, he missed 4. So just a piece of advice when you're trying to argue a point, when you're trying to be critical of an owner, a team, a coach, a player, whatever in life, when you look at the details and miss the point, if I say I'm worth $2 billion and I'm worth 1.7, does that really change the point that I'm a billionaire? I'm not, just using that as an example, right? If I say a quarterback threw for, he threw for 400 yards, well, actually, he threw for 373. Okay, who cares? He threw for a lot of yards, right? If you get into the nitnoids, if you get into the stupid little fact checks there, when there's obviously a clear point Jerry Jones is making here, and it's actually valid, which I'll get to in a second, you're losing the argument. So when people in the media, talking heads, or individual, if you get in this weird fact check game with these points that don't matter, it's different if it correlates to the point that's being made here. In this case, Jerry Jones's point is that, listen, you pay guys a lot of money and they miss a lot of time. You can pay them a bunch of money and they may not even play. It's true. It's a fact of life. The 49ers got hit with this bug last year. The Lions did too by the end of the season, derailed their Super Bowl chances. Dolphins, Dallas, of course, as well. New Orleans Saints, right? There's a lot of teams that had a lot of dollars last season, and happens every year, allocated to stars who then get hurt. And that will and can absolutely 100 times out of 100 destroy a season. The Dallas Cowboys 2024 campaign is a perfect example of just that. And Jones is making that point. And I know a lot of people here, when you listen to social media and look at deep dive at Dak Prescott specifically, and they say, listen, is he worth being the highest paid? I think based on raw performance on the field, he's not. He's not the best quarterback. Dak Prescott's a franchise guy. He's a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. But is he the best? Is he worthy of being paid the best, the highest paid at the time? I don't think so, right? I think most logical, rational people will agree with that. I still think he's very, very good. I'm expecting a massive improvement this season based on what happened last year, but I don't think he's the best. And I think that's a fair assessment to make. But the reality is, when you pay a guy who's not the best, let's say he's top 5, let's say even that may be high, but let's say he's number 5, you pay the number 5 guy number 1 money, and then he misses time, that's catastrophic because you're already losing value based on the dollars allocated versus performance. And then he gets hurt, it destroys your season. That's the point Jerry Jones is trying to make here. It's like, listen, even if we give Parsons just these huge pounds of money, just tens of millions of dollars, which they're going to do anyway, it doesn't necessarily lead to success. Everyone has been saying that for years. Everyone has been critical of the Cowboys for cap management for years. Jerry Jones, as much as flawed as he is in this weird situation with the Cowboys fan base and the Cowboys media at times where he'll say things that people agree with the day before. Prescott may be overpaid, right? They got too much money in stars. They need to be a little smarter about it. And then he'll say that, and then those same people will criticize him for saying that, right? That's dumb, guys. Let's not do that. If you want to be critical of the Cowboys cap management, the dollars they've allocated to certain players, you have to be consistent across the board. And I think Jerry Jones actually has a valid point here. Now, that being said, Parsons, I think, is worth the money. He's one of the rare instances where he is, but you still have to be smart about it. And I think that's what they're at least trying to do, especially when dealing with a very smart Micah Parsons and a very smart Micah Parsons camp, waiting, like I said prior, for the TJ Watt deal to drop before they can figure out the spread, the amount over the Watt annualized contract that they can now purr out of the Dallas Cowboys. And I think that's exactly what they're going to do, and we're going to get an agreement in time. Now, there was some commentary, I think, from J.J. Watt. He replied to this report saying, this really makes me want to fight for a guy, Jerry Jones criticizing my star edge rusher and star quarterback. This really makes me want to battle and go to war. Listen, we're adults. We're grown-ups. Most people in the NFL are adults, are grown-ups. If they aren't, they don't last long, right? Nothing against J.J. Watt. He's a phenomenal player, more wealthy than I'll ever be, by far. Doing great things broadcasting now. I wish him all the best. He's a phenomenal guy, by all accounts. Raises money. Great person. So I'm not destroying J.J. Watt here as a person. But we're dealing with grown-ups here, and we're dealing with multi-million-dollar negotiations, right? If you need to be motivated to go out and do a good job as an NFL player getting paid millions and millions of dollars by an owner saying good things about you publicly, I don't want you on this team. You're a loser. Let's be honest, right? If you are any person, I'm not picking on anyone specifically here, but if you need the owner of any NFL team, doesn't matter if it's Dallas or anybody else, to come out and say, I love this player, he's the best, gosh, he's amazing, we love him so much, yay! To go out and do well, you're going to lose. You're a losing player. You just are, right? And it's not just with football, it's with life. We've all been there in corporate America, or if you've worked a job at any level of business, right? Any organization, church, charity, whatever it may be. The people that need constant pat on the back, the people that can't take any criticism, the people that fold and just go to 50%, 20%, 10% effort, the moment they don't get immediate loving praise from their boss, their boss's boss, that we all know those people. They're mediocre. They're poor performers. They weigh down an organization, right? And I'm not being hypercritical of Watt or other people that have said, this is not the time to say this. And I understand where they're coming from because it's a very physical, demanding training camp sport, all that, right? You're throwing your body on the line. I get that. But this is also a job, and these are also grown-ups. Let's treat them like grown-ups, right? And if you're able to do that and handle criticism when it's actually correct in this case, Jones is wrong a lot of the time, but he's actually correct in this case. Let's actually take a look at this as adults, as we all are watching this, as we all are J.J. Watt, as we all are every criticism that's been levied on Jones here, and say, okay, this is 100% valid. This is a fair criticism. If you're spending a lot of money on players and they get hurt, it destroys your team. That's fair. That's valid, right? And if you take that personally, you're a loser. That's the point, right? And I'm not saying anyone specifically, and this could be a negotiation tactic, right? And if I was Parsons, I would use a negotiating tactic to sit there and go on. If I was the Parsons camp, I'd say, Jerry Jones, he says I'm not worth it. Well, then maybe we'll see what happens when I enter free agency next year. We'll see how much he's worth it then, right? And that's what they're going to do, right? And that's fair, right? That's what happens in negotiations. But for anyone in the media or any fan reading this and saying, Jerry Jones, he's hurting the team. Folks, if you're upset by this, if you're a player, if you're an employee, if you're anybody, right, and you're upset by the boss or the boss's boss or whatever, coming out and saying something factually correct that hurts your feelings, you're not good for the organization. You're a loser, right? And I'm not meaning anyone personally. I'm just saying you're going to not be successful. All right, so that hit up all my takes of all the news. There's a lot of interesting stuff to cover, even though, of course, practice is actually going to start today. I'm going to post this on the 22nd. So there's going to be a lot of interesting things to cover over the following weeks. If you got anything specifically you want me to talk about or cover, please let us know in the comment section below. Really happy to go over it. Obviously, I've got my own opinions. I've got my own thoughts on a lot of stuff. But if you have anything that I got wrong or anything you disagree with, let me know once again in the comment section below. I'm getting some light coming in this way as one of my screens fell down, so I apologize for that. But anyway, folks, until next time, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection.